Uncover the hidden life lessons of Warren Buffett, 7 simple secrets you need to know now. In a world drenched in financial jargon and economic chaos, a quiet man from Omaha stands tall, a titan of wealth with secrets that could change everything. Warren Buffett, the Oracle of Omaha, isn't just a name, he's a living legend wrapped in mystery and magnetism. Every dollar he invests, every decision he makes, carries a weight that sends shockwaves throughout Wall Street and beyond. And yet, there's a strange allure to his simplicity that tempts the curious. How did he ascend from a humble background to become one of the richest people alive? What mundane lessons can we unearth from his extraordinary journey? The truth is, those lessons hide in plain sight, buried beneath layers of wisdom that could reveal the keys to unlocking our own financial futures. Buffett has an uncanny ability to spot the impending changes that ripple through the market like crackling electricity. Imagine the thrill of standing in the bleachers of a packed stadium, feeling the roar of the crowd as he takes the stage. The anticipation thickens, just like the warmth of success radiating from those who heed his advice. Invest in what you know, he says, and it's like a slap of cold water in your face, a reminder that knowledge, so often underestimated, can lead to staggering gains. But there's more. His insistence on patience feels like a whisper amongst the clamor, hinting at a deeper truth. Why do some people leap at every shiny object, while others sit back and calmly observe? Every day, new stories flood social media, the latest plagues of poor investment decisions, the shocking fallout from unnecessary risks. But the pulse of wisdom thumps steadily in Buffett's heart. He speaks of fear and greed, 2 primal emotions that dance a dangerous tango in the investing world. Picture a crowded marketplace, voices blending in a confusing symphony. You feel the tension tighten in your chest, as panic grips some while opportunity cycles through the minds of others. The questions rise like steam from hot pavement: how does he do it? What fuels his unwavering calm? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Then there's the aura of humility that surrounds him. It's baffling. A billionaire wearing the same frayed jacket year after year, passing up private jets for a cramped seat on a commercial flight. Every choice echoes a simple truth, a lesson in being down to earth while soaring high above the clouds of wealth. Observers murmur in disbelief, some nodding in admiration, others scowling in judgment. Is humility just a facade? Or is there something profoundly liberating about living within one's means, even at the pinnacle of success? But here's the kicker: the real secret lies not just in what Buffett does, but why he does it. Look closely, and you might catch a glimmer of something enigmatic in his gaze: the relentless pursuit of knowledge coupled with an unshakable belief in the potential of the ordinary. The crowd shifts, a pin drops in that charged atmosphere as everyone leans in closer, desperate for more. What sparked that fire? What lessons lie hidden in the shadow of his rise? As hearts race and minds swirl with possibilities, one question lingers like a shadow: if Warren Buffett had to choose just one life lesson, a singular truth that encompasses it all, what would it be? A heartbeat of anticipation thrummed through the audience as they leaned forward, eager for an answer. What was that elusive truth? It hung in the air, palpable and tantalizing. Then, almost imperceptibly, Warren Buffett began to speak, his voice slicing through the electric tension. Rule number 1, he stated, enunciating each word with the calm confidence of a man who had weathered countless storms: never lose money. The crowd inhaled sharply. For many, this statement felt like a revelation. It wasn't just a maxim, it was a philosophy, a guiding star for anyone lost in the turbulent seas of finance. But as his words sunk in, a single gasp echoed from the back of the room: an anxious investor who had thrown caution to the wind, backing flashy ventures that promised quick riches. Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the audience. In that moment, the gravity of Buffett's wisdom became a paradox. How could such a simple rule contain so much complexity? The hands of a dozen watch-clad wrists inched forward, grasping for notepads and pens. They were ready to capture the kernel of wisdom just revealed. The room buzzed with a mix of inspiration and trepidation. Would they recognize the echoes of their past mistakes? The memory of investments gone wrong swirled like ghosts in the back of their minds. Be fearful when others are greedy, Buffett continued, his tone unwavering, and greedy when others are fearful. A chill swept through the crowd. In a world that thrived on immediate gratification, this was a challenge they were not prepared for. Some evaluated their own hasty decisions, previously fueled by FOMO, fear of missing out. Questions erupted like popcorn, each voice rising over the other. In fits of fervor, they queried Buffett about the looming recession. What about the market crashes? How do we spot opportunity amid chaos? His eyes sparkled with an understanding that hinted he had faced the demons of uncertainty many times. He paused, allowing their anxiety to settle before answering with an unfaltering calm that felt almost reassuring. Markets are not always rational, but those who learn to navigate through this turbulence, who cling to honesty, diligence, and yes, patience, will see the light, he said, his gaze intense. Then a flicker of something dark crossed his features. But beware the siren songs of industry hucksters. They can lure you with dazzling returns, harnessing your fears to exploit your ignorance. The crowd gasped again, this time in horror. The whispered rumors of insider trading and downright scams caught every ear like an unfriendly wind. Could the very landscape they relied upon be steeped in deception? It was a gut punch they weren't prepared to absorb. Those sentiments permeated the atmosphere, thick and suffocating that as knowledge swept through the audience like a wave. A truth began to crystallize. Investing was not just about numbers, it was about psychology, emotion, and a relentless understanding of human behavior. Would they have the courage to confront their inner fears and biases head-on? Yet in the midst of this intellectual unraveling, an unsettling thought began to blossom. What if the man they revered as an oracle was harboring secrets darker than any loss? An unsettled hush fell over the room, and eyes shifted back to Buffett, searching his face for cracks in the facade. The moment felt pivotal, charged with impending clarity or perhaps impending doom. With a glint in his eye, Buffett continued, because if you're not careful, you might just find that sometimes your greatest investments lead you to uncharted territory, and the pursuit of the unknown can have terrifying consequences. And just like that, a question lingered, tantalizing and chilling. What truths lay waiting beyond the lessons he imparted? As whispers of uncertainty flared, one thought prevailed: the path forward, laden with mystery, could change everything or unravel it all. The atmosphere thickened, each soul in the audience gripping their chairs as if they were navigating a darkened sea. Warren Buffett's enigmatic gaze left them in a reverie, pondering the deeper meanings of his words. But then, the tension snapped. A sudden sound shattered the charged silence, the unmistakable crack of a chair falling backward, followed by frantic scrambling. It was as if a shockwave ran through the room. Heads turned toward the source of commotion. A middle-aged man, red-faced and trembling, had dropped his notebook, the pages scattering like fallen leaves. "Are you all right?" Someone called out, but the question hung in the atmosphere, eclipsed by the unease tightening around them. The man scrambled to gather his notes, sweat beading on his brow, eyes wide with terror. Do you think he knows?" The man's voice wobbled, barely above a whisper, but it sliced through the murmurs. The implication of his words sent a ripple through the audience, eyes darting back to Buffett. "Knows what?" a woman shouted from the front. The crowd held its collective breath, anxiety morphing into chaotic curiosity. With a slight smirk, Buffett responded, "Life is full of probabilities, my friend. But sometimes, the scariest truths are our own." Was this an admission? The words hung thick with implication, leaving the tantalizing morsels of doubt to linger. The audience grew restless, their hearts pounding like war drums. Laughter faded, replaced by the gnawing uncertainty of the unexpected revelation. Had Buffett fallen victim to the manipulations he warned against, or was he inviting them to unravel a secret hidden beneath the veneer of respectability? Another voice piped up, shaky yet determined. What do you mean our own truths? We've been following your lead. The man's indignation didn't go unnoticed. Expectation hung heavy, eyes locked on Buffett for clarity. Ah, but that is the crux of it, Buffett said, leaning slightly forward, a predatory glint in his eyes. Success in investing is often a reflection of one's inner world. But, as I mentioned before, don't be lured by the glitzy illusions. He paused, letting his words resonate. You each hold fears, regrets, old scars. The reflection you see in your investments can reveal a personality riddled with self-doubt or inflated ambition. Digging deeper, confronting your truths, now that's the real challenge. Gasps rippled through the crowd, waves of acknowledgement mingled with dissent. Could it be that they weren't just making financial choices but wrestling with parts of themselves? Eyes shifted as deeper fears began to surface, momentary confessions left unvoiced. What hidden demons were clawing beneath their carefully constructed facades? Buffett straightened, his expression calm but unyielding. Only those who dare to wrestle with their shadows will awaken their greatest potential. The greatest investment you can ever make is in yourself, your time, your knowledge, and yes, your emotional well-being. Suddenly a hand shot up in the air, interrupting the dense tension. What concrete steps do we take? It was a call for guidance. A plea that echoed a desperate search for clarity amid the chaos. Buffett's lips curled into a smile, but his eyes remained focused, gleaming with something almost predatory. There are steps, yes, but knowledge without action is merely a shadow. The real question is, are you ready to confront what awaits? With a final glance at the audience that spoke volumes, he turned away, leaving behind an atmosphere electrified with unresolved questions. As the crowd slowly released their breath, fear morphed into excitement. What hidden lessons awaited beyond the surface? What truths had they yet to uncover? The air thickened with anticipation. Would they take the plunge into self-discovery? Or would fear hold them back once more? The uncharted waters awaited, and with them, answers they could only begin to fathom. The next revelation loomed. What dark investment truths about human nature would they find waiting for them? The crowd buzzed with anxiety, murmurs rising like a tide. Each pair of eyes flicked between Buffett and the still trembling man, who seemed frozen in a personal nightmare. The air crackled, charged with anticipation, and yet an unsettling feeling nestled deep in everyone's gut. Then, as if to break the tension, a loud crash echoed from the back of the auditorium. A projector screen fell, the large fabric ripping away from the wall, creating a disarray of panic. People jumped in their seats, hearts racing. A few shrieked, while others quickly turned their heads, searching for the source of the commotion. Had the event turned into chaos? Buffett stood, unmoved, his piercing gaze fixed on the chaos. Fear, he called out, his voice steady against the uproar, is the enemy of progress. Let it drown you, and it will seize every opportunity, every chance you have to grow. Incredibly, the audience suddenly quieted, the energy shifting from fear to an electrified focus on Buffett. He had transformed the room, encouraged by the moment of discord to make a powerful point. Lessons come in all forms, even those that knock you off your feet. The murmurs gave way to a potent silence, which seemed to pull the audience closer together. It forced them to reflect. What were they truly afraid of? Their failures? The lack of progress? The uncertainty of confronting their emotions, their past? Buffett resumed his stance, leaning on the podium like a lighthouse guiding them through the storm. So many of you invest in the market, yet many have neglected the most important investment, yourself. Imagine if you poured that same energy into understanding your true fears. What could you accomplish? A sense of wonder rippled through the auditorium. A woman in the front row dared to raise her hand, a quiver of defiance in her voice. What if confronting those fears uncovers something that we don't want to face? Good. There lies your truth. Buffett replied swiftly, the energy shifting back to an encouraging rhythm. Honesty is often painful, but it is also liberating. To break free from those chains, you must walk through the fire. Only then can you transform. Behind him, the screen righted itself, the lights flickering back on. The place felt alive and, for the first time, hopeful. Yet, uncertainty loomed like a dark cloud. The audience members began to shift in their seats, grappling with the deeper questions Buffett had ignited. What fires had they kept burning too long? Are you willing to step beyond what you know and venture into the depths of the unknown? Buffett's voice echoed in the charged silence, a challenge that struck each listener deep. Crickets chirped as they contemplated what choices they would make next. The question remained what truths would rise from their hidden depths. Just then, the trembling man spoke up, his voice barely rising above a whisper, "And what if we uncover something we can't handle?" Buffett turned, locking eyes with him, and the crowd held breath. "Then you face it. You're not alone. Growth means embracing everything, the beautiful, the messy, the difficult." The moment hung suspended. Hope mingled with dread, a cocktail of human experience. Would they rise to meet the challenge, fight through the storm? And then Buffett dropped another bombshell. "I've seen what happens to those who refuse to confront their truths. Their losses are devastating. But you will hear the stories, next. Stories of those who took the plunge." Next chapter. The promise echoed in the air. A tantalizing preview of the lessons yet to come hung heavy in the atmosphere. What dark legacies would they find as they journeyed through the shadows of their own making? The auditorium, once alive with tension, now hummed with a nervous energy. Faces, once blank, now reflected a tapestry of emotions: curiosity, fear, and a burgeoning sense of determination. Warren Buffett, undeterred, scanned the crowd, his gaze sharpened with purpose. "Stories they reveal our deepest truths," he said, weaving a tapestry of anticipation. "Each of you holds one, locked behind the walls of fear." A ripple of murmurs surged. Could they really confront their pasts? He stepped closer to the edge of the stage, a mere divide from the audience. "Let me share a tale. A story of a man who lost everything: his job, his family, his sense of self. He sat alone, drowning in despair. But that darkness lit a spark of fire that urged him to step forward, to unearth his deepest fears." The room held its breath. Eyes widened, ears perked. The man in the story had become a reflection of them all. He faced his failures, Buffett continued, his voice laced with urgency. He went back to school, retrained, and ultimately learned that sometimes, what we avoid the most holds the key to our liberation. As he spoke, gasps punctuated the silence. In the back row, a woman clutched her friend's arm. "What if I can't do it?" she whispered, tears brimming. Her friend squeezed back, their shared worry palpable. Buffett noticed, and for the first time, his voice softened. "It's okay to feel lost. But like that man, you must gather the courage to embrace the uncertainty. Remember, every painful ending is a new beginning waiting to unfold." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle in. A man in the third row raised his hand, shaking. "What if we fail again?" "Failure," Buffett replied sharply, "is a teacher. Each setback gives you insights no one else can provide. Embrace it. Let it guide you, but don't let it chain you." The audience shifted, a mix of discomfort and recognition washing over them. They were beginning to see their own chains, the fears they'd let dictate their lives. "But here's a question that may rattle you," Buffett declared, the excitement surging back into his tones. "What would you risk to unlock your potential? Are you ready to sacrifice comfort for growth?" A wave of murmurs erupted, voices rising. Some seemed defiant, daring to confront. Others shrank back, retreating into their seats. "Don't be afraid of the fire, my friends." Buffett called over the growing clamor. "Fire purifies. Keep pushing. The moment you step into discomfort, you open the door to greatness." But the murmurs quickly drowned into a static confusion, growing louder until a figure shot up from the back, a young man with wild eyes. "What if my truth is too dark? His voice trembled like a small ship in a storm. Buffett nodded thoughtfully. Darkness isn't an end, it's just part of the journey. Nobody's truth is too dark. To emerge whole, you need to hold it up to the light. The young man blinked, caught between terror and a glimmer of hope. The crowd shifted, leaning in as if they were all conspirators in this shared confession. Buffett took one last deep breath, his eyes glittering like the sun on water. You will hear more tonight, stories of courage and transformation. But it starts with each of you. Who's ready to dive into their shadows? Silence filled the space, thick and heavy, electrifying. Then, the trembling man who had first spoken stood again, his voice steady this time. I am, but what if I find out something I can't accept? Buffett's gaze locked onto his, fierce and compassionate. Then you decide, retreat back to comfort or fight for your growth. The choice is always yours. A collective intake of breath echoed, and in that moment, the stakes felt higher than ever. Their truths awaited, deciphering them could lead to liberation or fearsome consequences. The tension peaked as Buffett smiled, a challenge sparking behind his eyes. Stay with me. The next story will shake you. Are you ready for what lies ahead? The crowd leaned forward, anticipation hanging in the air like smoke from a fading fire. What shadows would emerge, and how would they confront the unknown? In their own lives. As the darkness beckoned, one question lingered: would they find their courage before it was too late? The dim lights flickered as Buffett settled back into the center of the stage, the air thickening with an almost electric expectation. The audience, a mixture of hopeful souls and hesitant hearts, held their collective breath, teetering on the edge of a pivotal moment. Let me take you deeper, Buffett began, his voice a soothing balm despite the heaviness lingering among them. This next story is about a woman, let's call her Sarah. Like many of you, she was paralyzed by past mistakes. He paused, gauging the crowd's response. The murmurs shifted, an echo of shared sympathies. She was once a rising star, Buffett continued, eyes glinting with intensity. But a decision made in haste cost her everything. Friends turned to strangers, family broke apart, and shame wrapped around her like a cocoon, comforting yet suffocating. She lost her way. The crowd shifted restlessly, the atmosphere thickening. Someone in the front row whispered audibly, "No. Not her." It was as if they all felt the heat of Sarah's shame, a blistering reminder of their own vulnerabilities. Now, here's the twist, Buffett exclaimed, igniting intrigue. Instead of hiding, Sarah sought help. In a moment of sheer desperation, she picked up the phone and called a mentor she had not spoken to in years. The rawness of that decision terrified her. But it was also liberating. A woman in the third row glanced at her friend, eyes wide. What if it's too late for me? She breathed, the worry spilling over her features. Buffett caught the glimmer of fear in that gaze. It's never too late, he insisted, voice unwavering. In the depths of her despair, Sarah learned that true courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the realization that something is more important than fear itself. Her journey back to self-love began with one brave step. With each word, the auditorium vibrated at a higher frequency, the connections deepening. Sarah's story felt like a mirror reflecting their own strife, igniting courage where it had once flickered weakly. But that's not all, Buffett continued, his voice charged. As Sarah reconnected with her values and goals, she uncovered a shocking truth. She had been holding her worth hostage, trapped in comparisons and self-doubt. It was like a prison of her own making. A gasp rolled through the crowd. Faces softened, brows furrowed in contemplation. Some nodded as if recalling similar moments of realization. She learned that self-worth isn't defined by others, Buffett declared. It's an internal compass guiding you home. You must forgive yourself for the past to unlock your future. The room radiated emotion, fear, hope, and a sense of renewal swirling together. Buffett sensed his impact. Sarah grew into her potential, transformed her shame into strength, and ultimately helped others heal. But it took deep honesty and painful truths to get there. Will I be brave enough? A man's voice rang out, uncertainty edging every syllable. Buffett leaned forward, intensity radiating. Bravery isn't the absence of fear, it's the choice to act anyway. You must choose to rise. Who will join Sarah on this journey? The silence that descended felt alive, a moment suspended in time, waiting for sparks of courage to ignite. Then, a hand shot up from the back, a familiar voice, trembling yet clear. It was the young man again. But what if facing my truth shatters me? The challenge hung heavily in the air. Buffett's smile was inviting yet fierce. What if that truth sets you free? Are you willing to break your chains for a chance at true freedom? A murmur spread through the audience, hearts quickening. The stakes now felt impossibly high. Buffett's action echoed in a crescendo of anticipation. Brace yourselves, he urged, because the next story will reveal a truth that may change how you see your own darkness. Are you ready? The energy pulsated with uncertainty and hope. The question lingered, who among them would find the strength to confront their hidden truths before time ran out? Buffett's eyes sparkled under the low light, and he leaned in closer, the intensity thickening like fog in the room. Let me tell you about another person in need of liberation, he continued, his voice a rhythm of urgency and revelation. This one is a young man. We'll call him Jake. A ripple of curiosity swept through the audience. They leaned forward, as if collectively holding their breath, ready for another twist. Jake was drowning, Buffett described, voice lowering. Not in the ocean, but within a torrent of expectations. His father was a corporate titan, a man whose shadow loomed over Jake like an eclipse. The pressure was unbearable. Jake felt he had to follow a predetermined path, a path paved with his father's dreams, not his own. An audible gasp echoed as the crowd tethered itself to the story. Here was another painful truth, one many of them secretly faced. But one night, one fateful night, Buffett's voice tightened with suspense, Jake cracked. He screamed, actually screamed in the silence of his bedroom. It was a release he had never allowed himself before. A few in the audience shared glances, their faces pale, as if remembering moments where they had wanted to scream too but had choked on the words. As he lay there, surrounded by the remnants of his shattered expectations, Jake realized something profound. Buffett paused, letting the weight of his next words hang in the air. He was not just afraid of failing, he was terrified of living a life that wasn't his. So he texted a friend that night, a person who had always accepted him for who he was, not what he was supposed to be. The crowd shifted, the energy crackling. The young man's bravery was contagious. A woman wiped a tear, her friend squeezed her hand. Jake decided he wouldn't conform to others' visions of success. He wanted to shift the narrative, Buffett declared, his voice rising with conviction. But here's the shocking part, folks, he didn't know what that narrative would be. The murmur of confusion blossomed around the room. The tension turned electric, uncertainty and possibility sparking like wildfire. Jake took a leap, Buffett continued, his expression mesmerizing. He enrolled in an art class, something he'd always loved but never dared to pursue. Each brushstroke was a small rebellion against the life he felt trapped in. It was terrifying. It was exhilarating. Jake's journey felt like a beacon in the darkness, and hope floated among the crowd, tangible and alive. But here's where it gets even more intense, Buffett went on, tone shifting to a whisper that beckoned attention. As he found joy in creating, he unearthed a terrifying truth. The deeper he dove into his passion, the more his father's displeasure loomed like a storm on the horizon. Torn between love and authenticity, Jake faced a brutal ultimatum. Gasps filled the room again, tension thickening as hearts raced. The stakes couldn't be higher. His father offered him a high-stakes job right out of college, guaranteed success, a safety net. It was the dream for many, but for Jake, it was a nightmare. He had to choose, accept the offer and betray his true self, or stand firm in his truth and risk losing his father's approval. Murmurs broke out, some heads nodding in silent agreement with Jake's dilemma. It was a battle they all recognized, a familiar clash within their own hearts. Would Jake choose comfort or courage? Buffett challenged, gaze sweeping the audience once more. The atmosphere crackled with tension, every eye glued to him. Because sometimes, choosing to honor your truth means facing the very people who are supposed to love you the most. The silence felt heavy, emotions swirling, fear, hope, determination all engaging in a tumultuous dance. Buffett's voice broke the stillness again, a soft but piercing whisper, "Are you ready to discover which path you would choose?" The spotlight dimmed, and the crowd hung in uncertainty. The fire was just beginning to burn, but would they have the courage to see it through to the end? Buffett stepped back, the room's tension palpable like static electricity in the air. Faces reflected a swirling mix of anxiety and anticipation, an audience teetering on the brink of profound realization. The lights dimmed further, casting elongated shadows across the walls. "Let us return to Jake," he said, leaning in again. As he held his father's job offer in hand, his world spun. He could almost hear the ticking clock of his father's expectations echoing in his mind. Time was slipping away. What would he choose? A young man in the front row squirmed, his fists clenched. The fear of a choice he never had to make clung to him like a second skin. He wasn't Jake, but he felt the weight of every decision with a sharp pang in his chest. Jake thought about the future he dreamed, one filled with color, creativity, and authenticity. Buffett continued, his voice soft but firm. But then, the image of his father's proud smile shattered that dream like glass. He let that imagery linger, watching it settle into the minds of each listener. Suddenly, a woman in the crowd jumped to her feet. What did he do? Her voice echoed, filled with urgency. The room turned, eyes wide with interest. Buffett raised a finger, drawing the collective breath. Great question. It boiled down to a simple truth: the louder the noise of doubt grew, the softer Jake's own voice became. He had to turn down that job offer, but... A collective gasp ripped through the audience, a sound almost like a single breath being expelled. Yes, but at what cost? Buffett allowed the question to hang in the air. Choosing his passion meant risking everything: his father's love, his stability, his security. Imagine the isolation wasn't just physical but emotional. You could see the shift in the crowd. Some were nodding knowingly, while others were clenching their jaws, visibly torn. Jake's dilemma wasn't just his, it was their own. Jake made his decision one rainy afternoon, standing in front of this massive canvas. Buffett described, his gestures mimicking brush strokes that filled the space with vibrant life. He felt a sense of liberation as he painted. Each color represented a part of himself he had kept hidden. The blues for his sadness, the reds for his anger, the golds for his hope. He poured his soul onto that canvas. As he spoke, imaginations flared. The paint dripped, laughter mingled with tears. The mood shifted, hearts swelling with understanding that creativity was cathartic, a lifeline. But as Jake chose authenticity, he also chose conflict. Let us fast forward, Buffett urged, intensity streaming back in. Jake's father demanded to meet with him. It was the moment when the storm finally hit. The silence clenched around the audience. They were ready to hear the clash, the fallout of courage facing the powerful tide of expectations. In that confrontation, words flew like daggers. Buffett narrated. Jake's voice trembled but held firm. Dad, I refuse to live your dreams anymore. If love comes with conditions, I don't want it. He could feel the heat of the battle, the harshness of his father's disappointment cutting through the air. Gasps and murmurs filled the room. The audience was transfixed, their own experiences melding into Jake's turmoil. A visceral silence followed, where you could practically hear hearts pounding. What came next could change everything, Buffett said, leaning in closer, eyes intent. Because sometimes, standing for yourself ignites a fire you never knew could burn so bright, or it could lead to everything unraveling. He paused, breath hanging heavy as the crowd held tightly to his words. But within that dark uncertainty lay a glimmer of hope, one that sparked curiosity beyond the haze. Now, what if Jake could mend the rift? Can love be rebuilt after it shatters? Everyone was on edge, breaths half-held, waiting for that next thread of hope that could transform into bravery. Would he risk it all for reconciliation, or would he stand alone in his truth? The electricity pulsed, and the energy swirled again like fire, ready to ignite. The air felt thick as Jake's heart raced. He stared at his father, who stood glaring back, his arms crossed tightly across his chest, anger radiating. "You don't understand." His father shouted, voice rising like thunder. "You're throwing away your future for what? A pipe dream?" The word struck like a physical blow, piercing through Jake's resolve. He wanted to retaliate, to scream back, but the lump in his throat choked him. "It's not just a dream, Dad. It's who I am." But doubt crept in again, echoing in his mind. What if he really was making a mistake? The room was electric, and the tension had people squirming in their seats. He could sense their curiosity, almost tasting the voyeurism that surrounded him, faces filled with raw emotion, anticipation clawing at their insides. The ultimate showdown between a father and son was unfolding right before their eyes, and Jake was at the center. A voice from the back broke the silence, trembling but brave. "You have to believe in yourself, Jake." Jake turned, catching a glimpse of a familiar face, his childhood friend, Lucy, standing tall. Their eyes locked for a fraction of a second, exchanging a rush of understanding. His father's glare shifted to Lucy, confusion clouding his face. "This isn't about her, this is about you and me." But Jake could feel Lucy's words wrapping around him like a warm blanket, igniting something within. The fire was there, but it needed fuel. "Listen," Jake said, forcing the words out as his heart hammered in his chest. "I can't live in the shadow of your expectations anymore. I want to create. I don't need your approval to be valid." A silence enveloped the room. The tension was thick, palpable, as if the world itself paused to witness the fallout. Jake felt the stake rise with every heartbeat. His father's face contorted in a mixture of anger and hurt. "So, you'd rather be a failure than make something of yourself? You think this painting will bring you happiness?" Jake could feel the heat of his father's disappointment washing over him like a tidal wave. It cut deep, and for a moment, he faltered. The fear of failing his father, of disappointing the man who had raised him, threatened to drown him. "No." Jake snapped back, firm and clear. "It's not about failure. It's about choosing happiness over a title or a career that isn't mine. Can't you see that?" The room held its breath, hanging on every word. The murmurs began, voices rising in anticipation of the next moment. Would there be understanding, or was it the end of everything? His father took a step back, face pale, like he had just sustained a wound that could never fully heal. "You want happiness? You think that's all it takes?" He whispered with disbelief. If the space had been electric before, now it felt like a live wire ready to spark. Feelings tumbled inside Jake: fear, anger, a desperate need for acceptance, but they all coalesced around one truth: he had to choose his own path. But deep down, a question lingered like a shadow. Could his revelation really forge a new path of connection between them? With his heart pounding, he felt the weight of his next words. What if he truly broke the cycle of pain? "Dad," Jake said gently, "I still want to be your son, but I can't do it this way. I need you to trust me to find my own way, or else I will always feel lost." Across the room, whispers swelled, the crowd stirred. They could feel the stakes. "What happens now?" Someone murmured, voices trapping the question in the air. With every gaze locked on him, Jake felt the world dangle between the edge of reconciliation and despair. Will he take that leap? Buffett's voice pulled sharply back into the moment. Or will years of expectations poison the roots they built together? The suspense tightened, flow like a noose around Jake's throat. The next moment might just launch him into something new or shatter his dreams entirely. In the heart of that charged auditorium, silence stretched on, heavy like a thick blanket. The audience felt every heartbeat, every breath as they held on to Jake's journey, the emotional stakes high. Would he find his voice, or would fear bind him in chains once more? Then, with a sharp inhale, Jake saw something shift in his father's eyes. There was a flicker of vulnerability, a crack in the facade of expectations. "You think it's that simple?" His father's voice broke, a touch softer now, revealing the struggles hidden beneath layers of pride. "Letting you go is terrifying for me. I wish I could understand this create thing," but he faltered, disappointment and confusion battling within him. "Dad," Jake replied, pushing through the storm inside himself. "It's not just about creating art, it's about finding my truth. That's where I'm alive. Can't you see?" His chest tightened, the pressure of surrender overwhelming him. It felt like a moment built on the fragile edge of a knife. The air shifted. Even the murmurs from the crowd faded, as if the universe halted to witness this clash of hearts. Their fears, anxieties, and dreams danced in that silence, the room aglow with the raw power of unspoken truths yearning for release. Jake's sincerity caught his father off guard. "But Jake, what if you fail? What if you end up struggling?" The anguish in his father's voice echoed the worries of every parent, fear of watching their child stumble without a safety net. "Dad," Jake said, boldness gaining ground, "perhaps I need to. Sometimes it takes falling to find what truly matters. Nothing I chase will ever amount to happiness if it's not mine." There was a fire within him, brimming with the hope of a life well lived rather than one simply led. Through all the noise, they stared at each other. In that moment, it felt like life's greatest lesson unfurled between them, the essence of connection rooted in understanding, unearthing the deepest fears, and guiding each other through a web of choices. Then, slowly, his father stepped forward, his hands trembling with the weight of realization. "Jake, what if?" A pause lingered, heavy with hesitation. But in those brief seconds, the audience leaned in closer, the energy thickening with anticipation as they hungered for the answer. "What if we risked it together?" Jake's father finally breathed out, uncertainty mingling with a glimmer of hope. "What if I try to support your choice even if it terrifies me?" Jake blinked, his mind racing to grasp the enormity of that concession. "Does that mean you'd be there for me?" His heart raced, hope melding with disbelief. "Yes," his father said, emotion cracking his voice. "But you have to promise me that you'll talk to me. Not just about what you're doing, but about how you're feeling." "I promise," Jake whispered, the sincerity washing over him like a warm tide. The audience erupted into an unexpected wave of applause, the air electric with relief and renewal. It felt as if every heart in that room recognized their own stories reflected in this exchange. Their struggles, stories of courage echoing anew, resonated deep within them. "Sometimes," Buffett said, smiling brightly, "the most daunting journeys lead us to the greatest revelations, and it starts with one brave conversation." Just like Jake's. He looked around the room, eyes sparkling. Transformation is rarely easy, but it's often where our most profound growth occurs. As he spoke, Jake felt buoyed by something greater than himself. Perhaps self-acceptance and leadership began with vulnerability. The fear that had almost cost him his voice branched into something powerful, wrapping around him with a newfound strength. The audience watched as Jake and his father embraced, a fragile yet palpable connection rebuilding in the aftermath of fear and misunderstanding. They felt the monumental shift within themselves, a recognition of what it meant to truly invest in one's own truth, and in each other. As the clapping subsided, Jake's gaze found Buffett one last time, eyes bright with admiration. Amidst the palpable energy, he felt gratitude pour from his heart. It was clear now the stories shared tonight were not just tales of others, they were blueprints for every soul daring to leap into the unknown. "Let's take a moment," Buffett called, his voice grounding them as excitement lingered. "Let's reflect on this journey we're on together. Look around, every single one of you holds your own story, and tonight, you've taken the first step toward uncovering it." In that moment, the auditorium was not just filled with individuals grappling with their challenges but a community embracing the journey together. And so, as lights dimmed, hope blossomed in that shared space. From Jake's triumph to the echoes of courage resounding through each heart, it was clear, the journey to uncover hidden truths was worth every moment of stifled fear and whispered doubt. As faces glowed with newfound resolution, one final thought hung in the air: life itself offered countless stories waiting to be told. And every choice made was the brushstroke painting your masterpiece. Perhaps, just perhaps, your greatest investment awaited beyond the shadows. Now, if you've made it this far, this is your moment. Don't let this motivation slip away. You need to subscribe now for even more life-changing stories. Smash that like button now to fuel the algorithm and keep this journey alive. Flood the comments section with your thoughts and theories about Jake's journey. Let us connect, and don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear this message. Together, let us step into the light of possibility and embrace the change awaiting us.